Hello everyone and welcome to today's lesson on fire safety. I'm Mrs Jennison and I'm an Associate Director for Outward Grange Academies Trust. So before we start, it would be really useful if you could turn the notifications off on your devices. This way you can take part in the lesson and really focus your attention. It would also be really useful if you had a piece of paper and a pen to hand so that you could take part in the activities throughout the video. This lesson is a part of our Saving Planet Earth topic. We have previously looked at the structure of the Earth and the components of the atmosphere, and then we've moved on to what do fuels need to burn. This lesson we will start to look at how we can be more fire safe. Our challenge is to be able to describe the conditions needed for fire. Our aspire is to be able to explain how we can use the fire triangle to stay safe in certain situations. Now you may remember from our previous lessons that there are three things required for fire: heat, fuel and oxygen. And if you take away any of those components, then the fire will no longer burn. The chemical reaction occurring during fire and during burning is called combustion. It can be summarised by a word equation: fuel plus oxygen forms carbon dioxide and water. Now, fire can be particularly dangerous in our homes. This is because we have many flammable materials. So I'm going to place another video here for you to watch, and then I'm going to ask you some questions about its contents.
Take a look. It's a rapid chemical reaction that's releasing make that huge amounts of light, heat, and smoke. It's hot. It's fire!
Learning safety, smart science. Right now, safety, smart science. Safety smart. It's time to start. Learning it now with Bill Nye.
Safety Smart Science is brought to you by Smoke Alarms. We don't mean to alarm you. Actually, we do.
Fire. It can be destructive, burning down buildings and entire forests. And it can be useful, providing warmth when it's cold, light when it's dark, and heat for cooking our food. No thanks. I prefer mine burnt. Here at Underwriters Laboratories, fire safety engineers make sure things are up to fire safety standards. Things like appliances, furniture, even entire houses. Now, how do they do that, you ask? What say you ask? They do that by burning things in controlled, safe environments. See, when you understand the science of fire, you can be safety smart. Around here, the motto is fire is servant, not master. That means you control fire. Fire doesn't control you. If you understand the science of fire, controlling it's not that tough. Fire needs three things to keep it burning: heat, oxygen, and fuel. Fire can become a real monster, destroying everything in its path. So to fight or control a fire, we control the amount of heat, oxygen, and fuel. Candles are a common cause of devastating home fires. This is what happens when you leave a silly little candle unattended. is fast. That little candle was turning into a pretty big blaze. In less than 30 seconds, a fire like this can be completely out of control. And fire is hot. You can feel the heat from that thing way over here. Now see that stripe on the wall? We've mounted temperature sensors from the floor to the ceiling. And even in the fire, they'll still give us readouts. We can see the temperatures on these displays right here. As we go from the floor to the ceiling, you can see that it's getting hotter and hotter. Up here, it's over 150 degrees. See, what's happening is the flames are making the air right above them get warm and expand. And then the cool air around them is forcing that warm air up. That's convection. And it's bringing fresh oxygen to the fire all the time. So it just keeps getting hotter and hotter. And it's making the walls and the ceiling of that room pretty hot as well.
So following the video, I would like you to have a go at answering the 3 questions on the screen. How can fire be useful? How can we control a fire? And when the room on the video was on fire, which part of the room was hottest? And to explain your answer. So fire can be useful to provide light and to provide heat for cooking and keeping warm. To control a fire, you would need to control the amount of heat, fuel and oxygen. When the room was on fire, the top of the room, including the ceiling, was the hottest. This was because the hot air rises due to convection. So now we're going to look at some useful information about fires in the home. So the first thing is that you would be 4 times more likely to die in a fire if you don't have a smoke alarm that works. So it's really important that you ensure that you have smoke alarms fitted and that you test them regularly. The ideal position is on the ceiling and in the middle of a room and on the hallway and landing so you can hear an alarm throughout your home. Around half of home fires are caused by cooking accidents. So make sure that you keep pots and pans out of reach, keep liquids away from electrical equipment, and don't ever put anything metal in the microwave. 2 fires a day are started by candles. So make sure that your candles are not near any flammable materials and don't leave candles unattended. Also make sure your candles are secured and in a proper holder and always away from materials that may catch fire, like curtains. Every 6 days someone dies from a fire that was caused by a cigarette. So make sure they are put out and do not smoke in bedrooms and don't leave cigarettes unattended near any soft furnishings. Cigarettes should be put out properly and disposed of carefully. Also be mindful of the tag that it could be on certain materials that implies they are flame resistant. Faulty electrical equipment, for example appliances, wiring and overloaded sockets, cause around 6,000 fires in the home across the country every single year. So a top tip to avoid this is to not overload any extension cords or power supplies, because that would be a fire risk. Now I'd like you to give some common causes of fire in the home and how these fires can be avoided. Fire in the home are cooking. So a top tip would be to not leave any cooking unattended and take care with objects near cooking equipment. Candles, don't leave candles unattended and don't place near flammable objects. Electrical equipment, don't overload plugs and check your wires for damage. And cigarettes, stub out correctly and never smoke in bed. Now we know that to put out a fire you need to remove one of the three sections of the fire triangle. But dependent on what is on fire will depend on how it can be treated. Now a top tip here is, if cases of house fires, the safest thing for you to do is to evacuate and call 999. Never try to fight fire on your own. Now there are different classes of fires and each one is treated in a different way. So there's class A, which is fires involving solid materials, B, which involves flammable liquids, C, which is fires involving gases, D, which is fires involving metals, E, which is fires involving live electrical equipment, and F, which is fires involving cooking oils. There are three of these which are most common in homes, so Class A, Class E, and Class F. Now Class A fires involve solid materials such as wood, paper or textiles. The way they are typically treated is by using a water fire extinguisher. Now this works by the water absorbing the heat and taking away the heat from the fire triangle. They could also be treated with a foam fire extinguisher, which seals the surface of the fuel, preventing the fuel from reaching air, and that removes the oxygen section of the fire triangle. They could also be treated with a dry powder extinguisher, and again this separates the fuel from the oxygen, extinguishing the flame. Now Class E fires, you could not use a water fire extinguisher because it's live electrical equipment and it is too dangerous to do so. Quite often instead a carbon dioxide extinguisher will be used. That smothers the fire and cuts off the supply of air, removing the oxygen from the fire triangle. A dry powder extinguisher could also be used. Now Class F fires are quite common in homes, and these are fires involving cooking oils such as deep fat fryers. Now these again cannot be treated with water because oil and water don't mix, So it can cause more issues and it will not be able to remove the heat from the fire because it's not going to be able to mix with the fuel. Often a wet chemical extinguisher could be used, which then prevents oxygen from reaching the flame, sealing the surface. But in small scales, a fire blanket could also be used here. A fire blanket is placed over a fire and removes the oxygen from the fire triangle. Now this GIF is water being added to an oil fire, and as you can see, the consequence there is it actually causes the fire to be more dangerous. So never ever ever pour water on a fire which involves oil. Now all of these methods put out a fire by taking away one of the three aspects of the fire triangle. Remember, never attempt to put out a fire on your own. If there is a fire in your home, evacuate and phone 999. Now, this GIF shows a phenomenon called backdraft. As you can see, when the fireman has removed the piece of wood, which is modelling a door, a fire has reignited and again become very dangerous. I'd like you to think about why that occurs.
Bye.